It started like any other morning show segment. Warm lighting, polite smiles, the usual panel talk that fills the quiet hours before people head to work. But what happened next wasn't planned, and it definitely wasn't ordinary. On live national television, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was hit with an accusation so sharp, so unexpected, it left the entire studio frozen. And when she responded, not with a meltdown, but with a legal move worth $80 million, the real story began. The topic was criminal justice reform, the kind of safe subject that gets airtime without starting fires. Jasmine Crockett, a Texas congresswoman known for being bold but always composed, had just started laying out the main points of her bill, something about fixing how certain laws unfairly affect working-class families. She was clear, steady, speaking in that calm, confident way that made people listen even if they didn't agree. Then Karoline Leavitt jumped in. You could almost miss the moment at first. Karoline leaned slightly forward, crossed her legs, and adjusted her mic like she was about to ask something casual. But what came out wasn't a question. "I just find it interesting," she said with that tight little smile, "that someone with shady nonprofit ties wants to talk about justice." Just like that, the air changed. For a second, nobody moved. Not the host, not the cameraman, not even Jasmine. She blinked once. "Excuse me?" she asked, voice still calm but tighter now. Karoline didn't flinch. "There are whispers, more than whispers, about funds being moved around from your nonprofit connections. I think transparency should start with elected leaders." That's when the studio went cold. The host tried to jump in, fumbling over his notes. "Let's keep it respectful," he said, suddenly aware that the cameras were still rolling, but it was already too late. Jasmine sat up straighter. Her voice was low and steady. "That's a lie," she said. "And you just said it on national television. Say it under oath." The control room panicked. The show's rhythm shattered. For the next 30 seconds, the host did his best to steer the conversation back to policy, but the damage was done. Everyone watching had seen the hit, and the fire had already started online. The clip made it to Twitter before the show ended. Someone had screen-recorded the exact moment Karoline made her comment, slapped a caption on it, and hit post. In under an hour, it had over 100,000 views. Comment sections exploded. Some people said Karoline was just asking questions. Others said it was a clear, reckless smear with no proof. The show's producers scrambled to manage the chaos, but the train had left the station. When the credits rolled, Jasmine didn't stick around. She handed her mic to an assistant and walked straight out the side door. Reporters were already gathering, cameras clicking. She didn't stop to talk. She climbed into the black SUV waiting at the curb, closed the door behind her, and sat in silence for 10 blocks. Then, quietly, to her aide in the front seat. "Call. Terrence, I want legal on the line in 20 minutes. This wasn't a disagreement. This wasn't a bad take. This was character assassination, and it was going to court." The moment the clip aired, the internet took over. It jumped from TV screens to phones within minutes. On TikTok, reaction videos showed teens watching with wide eyes and hands over their mouths. On X, political commentators typed furiously, either defending Jasmine or celebrating Karoline. Instagram flooded with edits, side-by-sides, bold font quotes, and audio remixes. The clip was everywhere, and it wasn't slowing down. Conservative voices were quick to frame it their way. "She just asked a question," they said. "Is that illegal now?" Karoline's supporters treated her like she had spoken truth to power. Some called her brave, others called her the only one willing to challenge the elites. Hashtags like "Mosh free speech under fire" and "Aw, she asked" trended by noon. On the other side, Jasmine's defenders fought just as hard. "This wasn't a question, it was a hit," one post read. She accused a sitting congresswoman of stealing, with no proof, on live TV. People called it dangerous, targeted, and personal. Journalists, former colleagues, and even nonprofit workers she had helped in the past began sharing their stories of Jasmine's record. But it didn't matter how many receipts they posted. The internet wasn't built for patience. Inside Jasmine's office, the mood was tight, not loud, just heavy. Yolanda, her advisor, was at her laptop, running live. Analytics. 57 million views, she said, not even looking up. That's across platforms. In under 4 hours. Jasmine didn't move. She was staring at the muted TV on the wall where a news anchor was replaying the clip. Again. Andre, her press manager, leaned against the desk. "They're not going to stop talking. We need to make the next move." Jasmine didn't look at him. She said simply, "We already did." She was right. Behind the scenes, her legal team had already assembled. Phone calls were made the same. Morning. A defamation case was drafted. The $80 million number wasn't random. It came from real damage, loss of donor confidence, the hit to her reputation, years of work now being questioned because of one TV moment. Her legal counsel brought in 2 outside experts to calculate the media impact and how far the false claim had spread. Karoline, meanwhile, leaned hard into the storm. She tweeted just after lunch, "If asking questions on live television is defamation, then we've got bigger problems than I thought." That line hit like lightning. Her followers rallied. Think tanks reposted it. Podcasts invited her. Conservative networks ran with it. She didn't call herself a victim out loud, but everything she posted said it without saying it. The spin worked. To many people, it now looked like Jasmine, a sitting congresswoman, was going after a young commentator just for saying something uncomfortable. The real issue, what was actually said, how it was said, and the lack of any facts, was getting buried under loud debates about freedom of speech. Jasmine's team watched all this unfold, but they didn't rush to clap back. Yolanda made that clear in the strategy meeting. "We're not playing her game," she said. "This isn't about matching noise with noise. It's about staying grounded." Instead of a press conference, they planned a short, direct-to-camera video. No studio, no host, just Jasmine speaking clearly and calmly so the public could hear her side without spin. But while they stayed quiet, others were digging. A freelance journalist named Owen Pratt posted a single question that changed the direction of the conversation. "Curious how Karoline Leavitt had that kind of access to the show without any promo," he wrote. "Someone had to green-light that. Wonder who?" He didn't accuse anyone. He didn't shout. But people noticed, and soon reporters were pulling at threads. The biggest thread unraveled a lot. Karoline had ties to the Marston Group, a private consulting firm that prepped media guests for live pivot moments. Basically, they trained people to go viral without making it seem like a stunt, and buried in their training videos, leaked by an anonymous source, was a moment that made everyone stop. An actress playing a commentator leaned forward and said, "I just find it interesting that someone with a shady history is talking about justice." It was nearly word for word what Karoline had said on air. Jasmine saw the clip in her office. She didn't flinch. "She was coached," she said. "This wasn't a slip. This was a setup." And it didn't stop there. Yolanda cross-referenced campaign filings and noticed something else. The PACs connected to Karoline? They were the same ones that went after Jasmine during her last election cycle. Same money, same consultants, same messaging playbook. The line wasn't just blurred, it was scripted. At this point, Jasmine's lawsuit wasn't just about her anymore. She said it herself during a team call. "If we let this slide, they'll do it to the next woman who speaks up. We're not just filing for me. We're setting a line. We're setting a precedent." The clip was viral. The lie had spread. But now, the truth was gaining ground. Quietly, carefully, piece by piece. The courthouse in downtown Dallas hadn't seen a crowd like this in years. The sidewalk was packed with reporters, activists, curious locals, and camera crews lining up behind metal barricades. People weren't just there for the hearing. They were there for the moment. The story had grown beyond a lawsuit. Now it was about reputation, power, and how far someone could go on live TV before the truth pushed back. Inside, it was standing room only. A quiet hum filled the space as phones buzzed with live tweets and group chats. Jasmine Crockett walked in first. wearing a dark gray suit, no jewelry, just a small gold pin on her lapel. The scales of justice. She didn't say a word to the cameras. Her face was calm, her steps steady. Her team followed close behind. Quiet, but focused. 15 minutes later, Karoline Leavitt stepped in wearing white. Not cream, not off-white. Bright, loud, deliberate white. Her hair was curled just enough, her expression polished and unreadable. It wasn't just an outfit, it was a statement. She knew people were watching, and she came dressed for a show. The judge, Ruth Delaney, walked in at exactly 9:00 a.m. She had a reputation, sharp mind, no tolerance for drama. She didn't raise her voice and didn't let anyone else raise theirs either. The room settled immediately. "Let's be clear," she said before anyone else could speak. "This courtroom is not a talk show. You'll present facts, not performances." Then came the evidence. The court played the video from the morning segment first, the moment it all started. Jasmine speaking calmly about policy. Karoline interrupting, "I just find it interesting." And then the line, "There are whispers, more than whispers, about funds being redirected from your nonprofit connections." The words echoed in the room. Clear, sharp, unmistakable. Next came clips from Karoline's follow-up interviews. The podcast where she said she had credible sources, the social posts about free speech under attack, and the Patriot Voice interview where she implied even more. The courtroom didn't react loudly, but the silence grew heavier with each clip. Jasmine sat still. Karoline shifted slightly in her chair, her fingers tapping the armrest. When it was time for arguments, Jasmine's attorney, Patrice Vaughn, stood first. No theatrics, just a steady voice. "Your Honor, this isn't about political differences," she said. "This is about someone using a public platform to make damaging, false claims, on purpose, with no proof. This wasn't commentary, it was defamation, with malice." Karoline's lawyer stood next, smooth and loud enough to draw attention. "All she did was ask a question," he said. "Are we punishing curiosity now? Is it illegal to bring up what's already being whispered about online?" He painted Karoline as a young woman under fire for speaking up. A truth seeker, not a threat. Judge Delaney leaned back slightly and looked at him. "Let me be clear," she said. "If I determine there was reckless disregard for the truth, if this was done to damage reputation and not for honest debate, then the First Amendment won't protect her. Understand that." Back online, things were moving just as fast. Karoline's supporters flooded the timeline with a new hashtag, shouts "Still Speaking." Edited videos showed her standing tall, smiling softly, framed like a leader under attack. But Jasmine wasn't sitting still either. Clips from her recent interview, where, she said, "I'm not angry, I'm awake," started gaining real traction. Older voters, teachers, even pastors shared it with captions like, "This feels like something honest again." Opinion pieces started to shift. One headline read, "What if Jasmine's right? Not a full win, but something had cracked." Then came Karoline's next move. The very next morning she went back on live TV. Different network, softer set, warmer tone. She wore a blue cardigan this time, barely any makeup. She looked like someone giving a personal statement, not a political argument. Her voice broke, slightly as she said, "I never thought asking a question would land me in court." She paused, looked at the camera, and dropped something new. "I've also been told by credible sources," she said, "that this isn't the first time. Miss Crockett's finances have raised questions." She didn't say where the information came from. She didn't show proof, but the seed was planted. Back in Fort Worth, Jasmine's phone lit up almost instantly. So did Yolanda's, Andre's. Reporters were already asking for comment. Supporters were asking if it was true. Jasmine stood in the middle of her office and said, "She's doing it again. She's adding fuel." Within the hour, her legal team had instructions to file a supplement to the lawsuit, new defamation added to the list. But Jasmine knew the legal fight wasn't enough anymore. "This isn't just court now," she said quietly. "It's the whole country watching. She looked around the room, then made a decision. We're done playing by their format. No more TV panels. No edits. No back and forth. I want one camera, one mic, one message. We go live. No noise. Just me. Andre looked up from his phone. No script? No script, Jasmine said. Just the truth. The live stream wasn't flashy. No fancy intro, no dramatic music. Just Jasmine Crockett standing in a plain room with a single camera in front of her. She wore a dark blue top, no jewelry, hair pulled back. Behind her, a bare wall. No flags, no campaign signs, just her. It was quiet at first, maybe 2,000 people watching when it began, but that number climbed fast. Within minutes, it hit $80,000. She didn't waste time. A few weeks ago, she began, I sat on a panel where someone used a national platform to throw out lies about my name, my work, and my integrity. Her tone was calm, firm, but never loud. This isn't about silencing anyone. It's about truth. Because when you say something on camera, to millions without proof, and it damages someone's life, that's not debate. That's destruction. For 17 minutes, she never looked away from the lens. She spoke about her background, her work in courtrooms before Congress, the bills she'd pushed, the people she'd fought for. We can't let a mic and a motive undo someone's life work, she said. Not mine, not anyone's. She didn't mention Karoline by name, not once. But it was clear who and what she was talking about. The way she told it, the story wasn't about a personal feud. It was about a much bigger problem, how easy it is to tear someone down in front of a camera and how hard it is to rebuild after. By the end of the stream, the chat was flooded with comments. Not all of them were supportive, but many were. People said they felt something they hadn't in a while. Honesty, calm, focus. A middle school teacher shared a clip on Instagram with the caption, "This is the Jasmine I remember." A pastor reposted the same clip with his own words, "You don't need to yell to tell the truth." That caption trended by morning. Back in the courtroom, there was still no final ruling. The case would take time. But Judge Delaney had already signaled something important. She said the line between opinion and defamation wasn't as blurry as some people wanted it to be. And if you knowingly spread lies to hurt someone's reputation, especially from a place of influence, you could be held accountable. That shift, just those few words, meant something. People started thinking more carefully about what they called just a question. Outside the court, something else started to grow. A group of lawmakers introduced a new bill, small but loud. It called for clearer ethics rules for people using national media platforms to talk about public figures. Not to kill debate, but to stop weaponized lies. The NAACP supported it. So did a handful of media watchdogs. The conversation was changing. Meanwhile, Jasmine went back to her district, not with TV cameras following her, not for show. She held town halls in school gyms and classrooms. She ate at community dinners and sat beside women who'd organized, block by block, for years. Nobody clapped when she walked in. They just nodded, said, "We see you." That hit deeper than any headline. She wasn't chasing the spotlight anymore. She was rebuilding something quieter, something stronger. And while Karoline kept posting videos, selling merch, and riding her wave of support, the energy felt different now. The flash was still there. But the foundation was cracking. The story didn't end with a winner and a loser. It didn't wrap up clean. But something shifted, and maybe that's the point. Because in the last scene, Jasmine's voice comes back. Not loud, not angry, just steady like always. Speak carefully, question boldly, but never confuse cruelty for courage. If this story made you feel something, share it. Talk about it. Let it live.